Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. This is Property Management 101, and for today's video, we're going to be reviewing and answering the question, what does cash for keys mean? If you've not experienced the big delay that a lot of markets are seeing with the eviction process, then you may not know what cash for keys is, and that is a good thing. This process and situation came up a lot during 2020, 2021, and 2022 as the eviction moratorium was still into effect. But cash for keys is something that's been practiced for many, many years, way before even 2020 with the most recent eviction moratorium that was in place. The short answer what cash for keys is there's an agreement that the property manager or the landlord has agreed to a certain sum of money that the delinquent resident has agreed to. This sum of money is in exchange for that resident moving out and turning in their keys to the property manager or the landlord, aka this is how it got its name, cash for keys. By agreeing to this, the property manager is not going to take the resident through the eviction process, as they are agreeing to let the resident move out without going through this process. And due to the fact that many property managers were seeing the eviction process take up to a year during these years, this is why cash for keys has really resurfaced at a mass level, because a lot of property management companies and landlords said to themselves, we can actually give the resident a sum of money, have them move out within the time frame that they would still be waiting for the eviction process to occur, and then this allows the unit to be re-rented to another resident that may be in a much different financial situation. Now, many of you may be saying, why would I be giving the resident money when they owe me money? This is kind of counterintuitive. And I do agree. I think that that's the hardest part about this situation, is it almost fights our natural ability of what we go through in our thought process when it comes to managing an asset. But this saves the landlord lots of time and money by avoiding the eviction process, and this saves time and money for the resident as well. But there are pros for both sides to make this situation a win-win that it may otherwise not be a win-win for both parties. Here are some pros that both parties will experience if cash for keys is agreed upon. The pro for a resident is they will receive a sum of money and avoid an eviction on the record if they were to go through the eviction process. For the landlord, they avoid having to go through the eviction process, any legal fees that they would have to pay for. It saves time for them and allow the unit to be re-rented to someone else, again in much different financial situation that's more likely to pay rent. So there are some win-wins to this situation if it is agreed upon. And if you're enjoying this video and learning something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. Another few things to keep in mind when it comes to this situation, in most situations, the property management or the landlord will also forgive the balance owed that the resident owes already that's pending on their account. The resident will avoid this balance being sent to collections or being attempted to collect it on in any other type of legal process in the future. So that is potentially another pro for the resident as well. A good practice that I would recommend if this is something you are performing at your property is once an amount and a date are agreed upon by both parties, is I would highly recommend that there be some sort of contract and agreement that is documented and signed by both parties, and giving a copy of both parties, which each one will be obligated if this process is going to continue. This is going to be an important step, because what you don't want to do is have a verbal agreement where it's not in writing and it's not enforceable. This is something you definitely want to get into writing, get it documented for both parties to sign. The typical steps for this process is once a date and amount is agreed upon, it is executed in writing by both parties. Then the resident will typically turn in keys. The property manager will verify that they have indeed moved out. Then they will provide the sum of money to the resident. Then the property management company or property manager will then re-rent the unit after they turn the unit, and then hopefully they're collecting income on that resident. This is the typical steps that occur in this process. Now, there are some situations outside of delays in eviction that I have heard about and seen personally that a landlord may consider cash for keys for. Some of those examples could be things like renovations, lease violations that they want to avoid court for. It could be resident issues with neighbors. It also could be things that maybe the owner of the home is planning on selling the home. It also could be a situation where the homeowner is looking to move back into the home. So here's some additional examples of maybe why a property management company or landlord may consider cash for keys as well. I will say that if you are not experiencing big delays when it comes to your eviction process, then something like cash for keys is something I wouldn't consider. I would really recommend to go through the typical and normal eviction process, as this is obviously going to hold more legal grounds, and it is something that I would also recommend to avoid a situation where you're giving up cash and you're forgiving maybe that collected amount that you could write off in taxes. So it is something I would consider that cash for keys be a last resort, but in a lot of cases it is the best situation depending on the circumstances. If you've not already done so, please watch my disclosure video as well as my why I do this video. And if you found this video helpful and learned something new, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for future videos. And also, please feel free to connect to our LinkedIn and our Instagram page, as we will post industry news, polls, and video releases. If you have any questions about this video or any of my videos, feel free to comment. I'll be happy to address it for you. Happy leasing.